All right, let's jump into a really fascinating topic today.
Mhm.
We've got excerpts from Marnia Robinson's book, Cupid's Poisoned Arrow.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like she kind of takes aim at some of those, well, like those typical romantic ideals. We all kind of,
Buy into.
yeah, it's a real high up.
So, I guess to kick things off, one of the big ideas that really jumped out at me was this whole concept of Cupid's poison.
Right.
What's she getting at there?
Well, you know how in the early stages of love, we get all those intense feelings like butterflies, longing, almost like an obsession?
Oh, yeah.
She's saying that's driven by dopamine. You know, that feel-good chemical in our brains.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost like we become addicted to this feeling, and then that sets up some pretty unrealistic expectations for what love should be like over time.
So we're kind of chasing that high, but
Yeah.
then what happens when it starts to fade?
Yeah, that's where things get a little messy.
Mhm.
When the dopamine levels naturally decline.
Because they do, it's part of how it works, we tend to panic.
Mhm.
We start thinking, oh no, the relationship is doomed.
Right.
And then some people even jump from one partner to the next,
Oh, wow.
constantly trying to get back to that initial high. Robinson actually calls this the great deception of dopamine.
The great deception of dopamine.
Yeah, because we're basically being misled by our own brain chemistry. Yeah.
So we're kind of hardwired for this emotional roller coaster.
In a way, yeah. But there's more to it than just dopamine.
Okay.
There's another key hormone that comes into play.
Oh, is this oxytocin?
That's the one, the cuddle hormone.
Right, the love hormone.
Well,
I know it's released like when we're hugging or kissing,
exactly.
but how does that actually, how does it create those lasting bonds?
Well, see, dopamine thrives on excitement, on novelty,
Mm-hmm.
but oxytocin is all about building trust, security,
Oh, okay.
that feeling of deep connection. It doesn't just surge all at once. It's released gradually, which strengthens the bond between partners over time.
So I guess dopamine is like the initial spark.
Yes,
And oxytocin is the ember that keeps the fire going.
I love that analogy. But here's the thing. Our culture is, well, it's kind of obsessed with that initial dopamine rush.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like we're taught that constant intensity equals true love.
Yeah.
And that makes it so hard to appreciate that subtle but powerful, enduring connection that oxytocin can bring.
You know, it makes sense. We see all these movies, these stories that
Yeah.
glorify the honeymoon phase.
Exactly.
So we think that's what we should be aiming for.
Yeah, but according to Robinson, it's just not sustainable in the long run.
Okay, so where does Carezza fit into all of this?
So that's where Robinson really throws a curveball. Carezza is a gentle, non-orgasmic.
Wait, non-orgasmic.
Yeah. It's an approach to lovemaking that prioritizes connection and intimacy over that intense dopamine rush.
So instead of focusing on, the climax,
Exactly.
it's more about...
It's about slowing things down, really being present with your partner. Things like extended eye contact, synchronized breathing,
Okay.
gentle touch. It's almost meditative.
It sounds like a pretty different approach from what we're used to.
It is.
But how does that actually work to strengthen a relationship?
Well, because you're taking the emphasis off of orgasm, there's a more consistent flow of oxytocin. It fosters those feelings of trust and connection, but without those crazy ups and downs of dopamine.
So it's not about eliminating pleasure.
No, not at all.
It's just a different kind of intimacy.
Exactly. It's a deeper kind of intimacy that's
Right.
less about excitement and more about a sustained connection.
I see. So maybe we've been kind of programmed to chase those intense dopamine-driven experiences, but it sounds like there might be a more fulfilling path
Yes.
to lasting love.
And that's through nurturing that quieter,
Right.
more enduring bond that oxytocin fosters.
This is all really making me think.
Yeah.
But Robinson also talks about individual emotional well-being.
She does.
Right. So how does that tie into building stronger relationships?
Oh, it's crucial. Imagine this. You're feeling stressed and your partner accidentally says something that triggers you. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause, you take a breath,
Okay.
you observe your emotions without judgment.
Okay.
That ability to respond consciously instead of reacting, well, that can be a game changer in any relationship.
It sounds like mindfulness is really important here.
Oh, absolutely. Mindfulness is about being present,
Right.
both in our inner world and in our interactions with others.
Well-
It's a key ingredient for healthy, fulfilling relationships.
This is fascinating stuff. But is it actually practical?
Oh, yeah.
Can couples really change their brains to experience love and connection this way?
They can. It's not always easy, and you have to be willing to challenge those ingrained beliefs and habits.
Right.
But the rewards are amazing.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. Let's hear about some couples who have actually made this shift. What are some of the results they've seen?
Well, there's this couple, Jane and Michael, they were really struggling after having their second child.
So they were feeling disconnected,
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed, and their intimate life had, well, it had kind of taken a back seat,
Mm.
which, I think a lot of couples can relate to that, especially after having a baby.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a big adjustment. So did they have any experience with Caressa before this, or is this like a totally new thing?
It was brand new. They found the whole idea pretty strange at first.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like non-orgasmic intimacy just went against everything they thought they knew about, sex and pleasure.
Pretty big shift. So how did they actually start practicing Caressa?
Well, the first step was just talking openly about their needs, their desires. And they decided to approach it like an experiment with a sense of curiosity, not like putting a ton of pressure on themselves.
Yeah. So taking the pressure off was important.
Yeah, definitely.
What were some of the first things they noticed when they started practicing Caressa?
They started feeling more present with each other, not just during intimate moments, but like throughout the day.
Interesting.
They felt more relaxed,
Okay.
more connected emotionally,
Wow.
and their communication just got way better.
That's amazing. Like just this subtle shift in their intimacy actually had a ripple effect
Yeah.
on their whole relationship. But I'm sure it wasn't always
Oh, definitely not.
right. They probably had some bumps along the way.
Oh, yeah. There were moments of doubt,
Mm-hmm.
frustration,
Okay.
even boredom sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But they kept working through it together. They kept reminding themselves that they were basically rewiring
Right.
years of ingrained habits.
Habits and beliefs.
Exactly.
So that's where the whole healing from within thing comes in.
Yes.
They had to do some individual work to support what was happening in their relationship.
Right. And Robinson offers all sorts of tools and practices for that.
Okay.
Like mindfulness is a big one.
Right, mindfulness.
It's learning to observe your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judging them.
Okay.
It creates space for you to make conscious choices instead of just reacting impulsively.
Can you give like an example of how that might play out in a real life situation?
Sure. Let's say you're feeling totally overwhelmed with work and chores,
Uh-huh.
and your partner forgets to take out the trash like they said they would.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
In the past, you might have just snapped at them, right?
Yeah, probably.
But with mindfulness, you can pause,
Okay.
acknowledge that frustration,
Mm-hmm.
and then choose to communicate your needs in a calm way.
So it's about responding instead of reacting.
Exactly.
But how do you actually cultivate that mindfulness in the heat of the moment?
Well, it takes practice.
Right. Okay.
Robinson suggests incorporating mindfulness exercises into your daily routine. Even just a few minutes of breathing exercises or body scan meditation can make a huge difference.
So it's about building that awareness muscle,
Yeah, so you can access it when things get tough.
like building emotional resilience.
Exactly.
And self-care is part of that too.
Well,
okay.
absolutely. Self-care is crucial.
Okay.
It's about prioritizing things that nourish you,
Like
getting enough sleep,
Hmm?
eating healthy,
Okay.
spending time in nature,
Right. Right. Yeah.
or doing something creative that brings you joy.
So it's not selfish to focus on self-care?
Not at all. It's actually the opposite.
How so?
Because you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're not taking care of yourself,
Right.
you won't have the energy or the resources to really show up for your partner.
That makes sense.
It's about recognizing that your individual well-being is the foundation
Okay.
for a healthy relationship.
So what other tools does Robinson suggest for this healing from within process?
Well, she talks a lot about cultivating a more positive inner dialogue.
Oh, like challenging that inner critic we all have.
Exactly. That voice that loves to point out our flaws and put us down.
Yeah.
We need to learn to challenge those negative thoughts
Uh-huh.
and replace them with something more supportive and compassionate.
So basically retraining our brains
Yeah,
to focus on the good stuff.
exactly. And when we have a more positive self-image,
Mhm.
it affects everything. We approach relationships with more confidence and self-worth.
And that attracts healthier dynamics.
Exactly.
But this inner work can be tough.
Well, it can be. It's a journey,
Yeah.
and it takes time.
Robinson acknowledges that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
It's not about being perfect or reaching some, state of enlightenment. It's about progress, not perfection.
That's reassuring. Okay, so we've talked about Jane and Michael, but I'm curious to hear about other couples who have tried this approach. What other inspiring stories does Robinson share?
Well, there's Sam and Lisa, and they were.
Oh, yeah, Sam and Lisa. They were the couple that was like on the verge of divorce, right?
Yeah. That's them. They were really struggling.
Yeah, their story was intense.
Years of arguing, emotional ups and downs. It was rough.
It sounded like they had tried everything.
They had couples therapy, communication exercises, the whole 9 yards.
And nothing was working. So how did they even find out about Carezza?
Lisa actually stumbled upon Robinson's book,
Okay.
but she was almost afraid to mention it to Sam.
Oh, really?
Why? She thought he would think it was totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of non-orgasmic intimacy, it's pretty out there.
It is, but they were desperate.
Right, they were at that point
They
where
were willing to try anything.
they had nothing to lose.
Exactly. So they decided to give it a shot.
What was it like for them when they first started practicing Carezza?
It was definitely a process, and it wasn't always easy.
Yeah.
They had to unlearn a lot of old habits
Right.
and work through some pretty deep emotional stuff.
Okay, but as they kept practicing,
Things started to shift.
like how? What did they notice?
The constant arguing stopped.
Wow, really?
Yeah, they started communicating better,
Okay,
really listening to each other without getting defensive.
that's huge.
It was. And all that resentment that had been building up, it just started to fade away.
So Carezza gave them a way to reconnect,
It did.
to like rebuild that intimacy they had lost.
Exactly. They started making time for each other.
Okay.
Doing things they enjoyed together.
Like what?
Going for walks, cooking meals together.
Right. Just simple things.
Yeah, just enjoying each other's company without all that pressure.
It's amazing how powerful those simple things can be.
They really are.
So their physical intimacy changed too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They learned to appreciate the subtleties of touch, the power of eye contact,
Okay.
just the beauty of being present with each other.
So it wasn't about reaching a climax anymore.
Right. It became more about cultivating a deeper, more sensual connection.
Their story is so inspiring. It's like even when things seem hopeless, there's still a chance to turn things around.
There is. It just takes vulnerability and a willingness to try something new.
I love that. It really shows that Carezza isn't just about sex. It's about a whole new way of being in a relationship.
It is. It's about mindfulness, compassion, and connection.
You know, it's fascinating how Robinson ties all these things together. Dopamine, oxytocin, Carezza, mindfulness, self-care. It's like a whole new framework for understanding love and relationships.
Exactly. It shows us that we have more control over our experiences than we think.
This deep dive has honestly been mind-blowing. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on love
That's great to hear.
and the potential for growth within relationships.
I'm glad you found it so insightful.
I really did. And to our listeners, if you're intrigued by any of this, I highly recommend checking out Cupid's Poisoned Arrow.
It's a great read.
It is. And if you have other topics you'd like us to explore, send them our way.
Yeah, we're always looking for new deep dives.
We'll be here to guide you on your journey of discovery.
Absolutely. Keep those questions coming.
Happy exploring, everyone.